Greetings and welcome, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, to episode 306 of the Words About Games podcast, the weekly news culture and gaming podcast for Words About Games. I'm your host, Amy Kate Alexander, and I'm joined this week by Mr. Patrick Welsh.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm not moody. Please don't hate me.
No, everyone will be. So I've just noticed that you're on the other side to literally everybody else. I don't know why Discord has done this. I'm not. It's just fine. It's just I was just about to go Patrick, and then I was like, wait, he's over. He's over there. I just confused all our audio listeners. Lol. How's it going?
It's all right. A little sleepy. That's all.
Aren't we? I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a little sleepy.
I'm excited to be here.
Ooh.
Talk about them video games.
Excited to be here.
I used to like video games, but then I was told that was wrong and stuff.
Yeah, Moody jokes that he used to like video games before he met me. And we podcasted, and I was like, by the way, did you know? And then it's like you open the chest. Or it's like the scene from Scanners, where I'm just like, by the way, did you know all of this about video games? Then his head explodes. But I just copy and paste the news, man. I just go where the stories are. But yeah. So it's been a minute. It's been a few minutes since you've been on our podcast. I can't even remember the last time you were here.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, wait, how many apocalypses ago was it?
I don't know. It was definitely at least a couple of apocalypses ago.
So was it the plague, the famine, the war, the pestilence?
Jesus. You just lay it all out in those terms.
How many? Oh, God damn it. I've forgotten the name of the game with the horsemen. Like
Darksiders.
Darksiders. How many Darksiders ago was it?
In fairness, there was a Darksiders recently. Darksiders 3, I remember that. I try to forget.
There was two. There was the Diablo one.
Oh yeah, there was another one as well, wasn't there? I never actually played that one. The Darksiders 3 wasn't great, so I kind of skipped whatever was after that. I like Darksiders 2.
This is my confession. I've not actually played any of the Darksiders. I think I might have downloaded the demo for the first one on 360. That was it.
That's fair. Like, I like Darksiders 1 and 2, but I wouldn't say I love them. Like, I wouldn't trip over myself to recommend them. They're heavy metal Zelda.
I don't think they're anyone's favorite game. But I think they're sort of everyone that I know likes Darksiders. Like, oh yeah, I remember Darksiders. It was good. It was like God of War and Zelda. It reminds them of things that they liked.
Yeah. What was I playing recently where I said something like that? I was streaming Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt, which is the new Vampire the Masquerade game that's also a free-to-play battle royale. And I was like, I think after a couple of hours of streaming, I remember saying, it's fine, but it kind of makes me want to play Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines and B, Apex Legends. It's like, this game's like, they're pretty good and like you have a good time with them, but they make you remember the better games, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You just said
my game first thing was that, well, on the other hand, it's, a battle royale game, but it has vampires.
I mean,
and it has proper vampires from Vampire the Masquerade. I'm like, tell me more.
Yes, I mean, I'm all about vampire games. I like vampires. There's some interesting stuff. You can bite people to get power, to get buffs and stuff like that. Don't break the Masquerade though. Even though everybody's literally shooting at each other all across Prague. But yeah, sure.
But yeah, the whole premise of it kind of does sort of undermine the whole concept of having a masquerade. Let's not have a masquerade, let's have a battle.
It's like, yeah, you can run around and shoot. you can run around and like shoot all of the vampires and stuff, but like if you bite a human in front of another human, you still break the masquerade.
It just turns into like, did you see Free Guy?
I've never seen Free Guy, no.
I mean, don't, because it's terrible, but it just turns into that where it's like everyone's basically an NPC and they're just like, what the hell's going on? Don't pay attention to it.
Ah.
It's like told from the point of view of like the NPCs whilst GTA is going on in the background.
Oh, I never really liked GTA, so if I'm being honest. But I've never seen Free Guy. No, a lot of people talked about it when it came out.
It's not good.
I'll just watch Star Trek again.
It's actively bad. I say this to someone who like will watch trash. Like I went to watch Morbius. A lot. So I watched crap, and Morbius is not good. I was not actively angry at it the way I was at Free Guy, which is just somehow a worse Ready Player One.
Wow, I never watched Ready Player One either, but
don't watch Ready Player One.
I knew to avoid that.
As basically, do you like Gamergate? You might like Ready Player One.
Oh no.
Yeah, the whole premise of Ready Player. I mean, the book was written before Gamergate, in fairness, but the whole premise is that gatekeeping has become an important life skill.
That's just. I mean, isn't that just like parts of the internet at this point? Like,
there's probably parts of the internet where that is some people's favorite book. That's the only book they've read.
You have cheated not only the game but yourself, etc., etc.
Oh yeah, honestly, yeah. That's why you wasted your slow lives. I studied the play.
What's the other one? There's a lot. I mean, there's loads, but there's the one that's like you have, you. What is it? You have one life. I choose to have many, and it's just all the video game characters on a T-shirt or something. God. It's just like, oh God, please save me. beam me up, Scotty. No. Okay.
So now we've alienated everyone in the audience.
I mean, I try to make sure I do that in the first sort of 10, 15 minutes. So like that, we don't have to worry about the rest of the show. But people still apparently watch it and tell me about it and talk to me about it. I'm guessing.
Why?
I don't know. I mean,
I know why, but why? Do something else.
You don't want to listen to us talking about video games.
No, do that. Obviously, you want to listen, but then, if you're going to be mean about it, then don't.
Everybody's being all... Well, not everybody. People are mean, but I can't help it. You can't help it. Nobody can help it. There's two people logged into this document, so I'm hoping Moody's doing his OpenCritic score because I yet again forgot to tell him what the game was, so I've just messaged him. But I was going to say something, and I feel like it was going to be really profound, but I forgot what it was. I've been watching a lot of Star Trek recently.
Hooray! I like Star Trek.
I like Star Trek too.
And do you know what? Just, I was thinking about this because I was watching Obi-Wan Kenobi thinking, I like Star Wars. Like, even when it's a bit silly and a bit dumb, like the Book of Boba Fett, I still like Star Wars. I was like, I like Star Trek, but I don't necessarily like Star Trek. Do you know what? That's okay, because I still like Star Trek, and I'm not like so bound off my whole identity that I need to. Because it's just like now you just go on like Star Trek's Facebook page, and it's all just complaining about how Star Trek's gone woke now.
Oh, I saw the Fox News thing.
It's like, please just move on.
I've seen the Fox News thing, and like you go on the trailers for like Strange New Worlds and stuff, and you'll see people like commenting on it from like a couple of months ago, like before it started coming out, and there'll be people going, "Oh man, I hope this one, like saves us from the woke Star Trek." And as someone who's seen the first 4 episodes of Strange New Worlds, I'm just like, I got some news for you.
I mean, I haven't seen. I mean, other than Lower Decks, I haven't really clicked with like the post-discovery track. And you know what? That's fine because I'm an adult and I can go do something else with my life.
This is true.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that and just say I like stuff.
Star Trek is good. I love Lower Decks. I like Prodigy as well. I watched Prodigy recently. that was what kind of kickstarted my whole Star Trek thing. I needed something after Picard season 2 because I really didn't enjoy it very much, to put it mildly. And I was like, I need more Star Trek. And I was like, well, I haven't watched Prodigy yet. It's the only Star Trek I haven't seen.
Which one's that? Is that the animated one?
It's the other animated one. With
the other animated one.
With Captain Janeway and
the one with Kate Mulgrew in it.
And the kids. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. If you accept it at face value for what it is, that it's a Nickelodeon show, it's pretty good. But then I started watching Strange New Worlds, and it's legitimately like blown me away. And
I just saw something on my feed. Someone just posted a picture saying my sexuality is the cast of Strange New Worlds.
That's so good, though.
Oh my god, do I have to see this now?
Yes, you do. When it comes out, or
Well, sooner. Yeah, it's not. I mean, how could you possibly have seen it, Amy? It is not available to watch anywhere in the United Kingdom.
No, not in the United Kingdom. And before I get banned from Paramount Plus, before Paramount Plus ever launches in the UK, but just give me 6 more weeks so I can watch the rest of Strange New Worlds. The problem is it comes out once a week. So I'm filling in my time in between because it's so good that I want to keep watching it, but I can't because there's no new episodes. So then I fill my time between new episodes of Strange New Worlds by watching Star Trek Voyager.
Have you considered fan fiction?
I have considered fan fiction, I'm not going to lie. But I'm enjoying Voyager. I've got a list of episodes.
No one ever.
I like Voyager. I know.
The problem I have with Voyager, this is just us talking about Star Trek now.
I know.
Is that I love half the cast of Voyager and I hate them.
Ooh, interesting.
So the nature of Voyager is that if it focuses on a character I like, I'm probably down with it. But if it's like Tom Paris, I'm like, skip it.
Tom Paris.
And I know that's not fair, but I think compared to especially to DS9 and mostly Next Generation, they had really strong casts top to bottom. Whereas Voyager, it's okay, I'm cool with obviously the Doctor and Seventh Nine, everyone likes them.
Everybody likes them.
But also Tuvok and Pelana Torres, I think, is probably the most overlooked and underrated character.
So it's funny you mention that because
she's really interesting and she doesn't get as much credit as I think she's due.
So it's funny you mention that because I was going to tweet about this later because I just finished watching an episode about a Pelana episode before we started recording. And every time I rewatch something, I always come away with something new. The last time I watched Deep Space Nine, I remember saying I think Kira Nerys might be the most underrated character in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, she's great. You watch it and God, why did Winston not do more after this? Because she's really good.
But my takeaway so far, I'm mid-season 3 of Voyager. My takeaway so far is literally what you just said, where I'm I think Pelana might be the most underrated character in Star Trek Voyager.
Why do you not talk about her more? It's because all the marketing became about Seven of Nine and her catsuit and
the TV show kind of becomes about 7 of 9, but I haven't reached that point yet. There is no 7 of 9 yet. But yeah, Tuvok's great, Janeway's great, the Doctor's fucking fantastic.
Tuvok is great. Tuvok's interesting because he's sort of like Worf in reverse, except he's a natural warrior from a culture of peaceful logicians.
Yeah.
And there's an intention there. And he's I actually think it's one of the best portrayals of a Vulcan because it's made very clear that Tuvok feels emotions very deeply, but he's doing everything he can to not murder everybody around him.
Apart from in that one episode, especially in that one episode.
Well, yeah,
which I watched.
There's an interesting tension between his natural sort of instinct to fuck shit up and his sort of the cultural expectation that he not do that.
Yeah. I was so one of the other episodes I just recently watched was the 2-parter where they go back to 1996, which at the time was obviously present day. And it's great. There's my favorite part is the scene
Sarah
where
Silverman's flirting with Tom.
Sarah Silverman flirting with Tom Barris, and where the doctor walks in on those like the guys in the woods, and they start shooting at him, and they're like, "Oh, sweet Jesus," or whatever they say. Like, and I wish I could remember the doctor's line because I never remembered he said it. And it was like, I was laughing for like 5 minutes straight where I was just like, prayers to your God won't help you now. And he just phases them.
Is that the one where, is that part where the doctor like bursts away a bunch of like white supremacists?
Yes.
Yeah. Out in the middle of nowhere. I'm like,
it's like, yeah, the feds turn up. And you can hear them like, "Oh, we've got you surrounded. Like, bring out the shuttle pod, bring out the occupants of the shuttle," because they've got Torres and Chicote. And then you just hear Tuvok in the distance trying to like, the Tuvok at the distance suddenly shows up and he's just like, "Please lower your weapons, gentlemen." And then you hear the phaser fire. And the whole thing happens off screen. I was just like, this is just a fun romp.
Yeah. It's kind of like an interesting time capsule as well, because like, oh yeah, that's what 1986 looked like.
Right? It's like, I feel like if you're doing a Star Trek TV show in the present day, and you're like, "Hey, we should do a fun romp back to present day Earth," it's like, it wouldn't really be a fun romp as fun a romp as it would have been going back to like 1996.
That's basically the entire premise of Voyage Home.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's go back to 1986, as it were.
I guess that was the entire premise of Picard season 2.
No, is it? I don't know.
Yeah, they go back to. Sorry,
I don't know.
They go back to 2024, I think it is, and it's like there's definitely a lot of like nods and references and Easter eggs to the Voyage Home.
To Voyage Home. That's
yeah.
fine. I was worried it was going to be like, like Picard was going to be like dabbing or something, or he's going to be.
No, it's very depressing. Rios gets to say the line though, where one of the characters from like that time is like, "Where are you from? Outer space?" And he goes, "No, I'm from Chile. I just work in outer space." And it's like, he said the line. So that was Picard season 2. That was probably about 20% of everything I liked about Picard season 2.
I think I would try to just roll my eyes at
that one line. It's just it works. The cast in Picard is extremely good. I don't think they've been given great things to work with.
Yeah, they're fine. I mean, again, I say this a lot. It's not their fault. I mean, again, I haven't finished the first season, so it's.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
I can't comment on it, but yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't blame the cast for it. I mean, I'm kind of done blaming cast members for things being bad, because generally speaking, I think the worst an actor can be these days is miscast.
That's true.
Generally speaking, if something doesn't work, I don't usually think it's a fault of cast members.
Yeah, that's a reasonable thing to say, I would say. But we should do a Star Trek rewatch podcast.
Just throwing half of the Voyager cast under the bus. But again, it's probably. I mean, it's not their fault, apart from Robert Beltran, and that's only because he's spent so much time whining about it. In a way that, in hindsight, is kind of just like unprofessional.
A bit.
It's like, okay, I get that you didn't like working on Voyager, but it's a job.
It's a shame that his character could have been very interesting.
There's a whole like book you can write on everything that's wrong with Chakotay. We're probably not the people to do it.
No, we're definitely not the people to do that. But yeah, it's a shame. Anyway, let's start the show. The actual game show. I know, right? The banter sections just get longer and longer. Pretty soon I'm not even going to be doing a podcast about games anymore. But for now, this
just do a banter podcast, I mean, you'd be allowed.
Is the Words About Games podcast. Every Monday, you can get the video version of the show on youtube.com/wordsaboutgamesuk, or you can get an audio version on a variety of platforms, including Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and a few that we've never even heard of. There's timestamps in the description wherever you choose to get your podcast, so you can see what we've been chatting about, skip around, or watch the entire podcast backwards. We don't mind. We're just happy that you're here. If you'd like to support the show or our content directly, you can buy us a coffee over at coffee.com/wordsaboutgamesuk. Lastly, if you want to hang out with us while we play some games, head over to twitch.tv/wordsaboutgames. And if you want to hear us talk about and review some video games, we publish reviews on the YouTube channel. Go, boom, done it. All that stuff is like plural, like we and our, but then Moody abandoned me to go and work at PlayStation, so it's just me.
One, valid, and two, I mean, that's how you, I mean, think of it as like the corporate we. In that there's a distinction between Amy Alexander and Words About Games, and you're
Wait,
speaking
there's a difference?
legally. I mean, it's like the difference between the monarch and the crown.
I wonder if I'd be allowed to change my name again to Words About Games. Ah, Miss Games, nice to see you.
It's like, I don't know. It's like the Pope's role as head of the Holy See is distinct from his role as the ruler of Vatican City, like that.
Fair.
And so, in your persona as Words About Games, you're allowed to use we because it's
the royal we.
I'm sorry. I'm just throwing like the kayfabe out the window here, aren't I?
Do it. Do it. Fuck shit up.
We're just behind the curtain.
My curtains are shut, so right, let's start with the news. Start with some good news. I'm booking recent trends. Raven Software QA votes to become first major video game union in the United States. This is from Patrick Klepek over at Vice Waypoint. He writes, the quality assurance team at Raven Software, a studio owned by Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard that contributes to the mega popular Call of Duty Warzone, has officially voted to unionize. The vote was 19 in favor, 3 against. In video games, the quality assurance department helps identify bugs, glitches, and is often underpaid and understaffed. The union is called the Game Workers Alliance. Members of the Games Workers Alliance, in a statement released after the vote, said, quote, now that we've won our election, it is our duty to protect these foundational values on which our union stands. Our biggest hope is that our union serves as inspiration for the growing movement of workers organising at video game studios to create better games and build workplaces that reflect our values and empower all of us. We look forward to working with management to positively shape our working conditions and the future of Activision Blizzard through a strong union contract, end quote. While it's not the first video game union in the United States, it is by far the most high profile, and the vote comes amid Activision Blizzard being acquired by Microsoft and a broader inquiry into sexual harassment and assault at Activision Blizzard. An Activision Blizzard spokesperson stated in a statement, quote, we respect and believe in the right of all employees to decide whether or not to support or vote for a union. Okay. We believe that an important decision that will impact the entire Raven Software studio of roughly 350 people should not be made by 19 Raven employees, end quote. In recent months, Raven Software workers accused the publisher of curiously shifting staff around without organising, and, just last week, Bloomberg reported that the US Labour Board prosecutors, quote, determined Activision Blizzard illegally threatened staff and enforced a social media policy that conflicts with workers' collective action rights, end quote. An Activision spokesperson told Bloomberg that the allegations, quote, are false, end quote. This historic vote follows the polling that suggests game developers are more interested in unionizing than ever before. The question has been, what studio would take the first step? Raven. Yay. They did it.
Hooray.
I've never been so nervous about a vote, about a unionization vote at a company I don't work for. I've never had any contact with. But like when I knew they were voting, it was like that hour where it's like, okay, they're voting. And it was like an hour, I think, before like anybody knew the results. And I was just like, please don't vote no. Please don't vote no.
Yeah. And in fairness, like, what was it, 19-3? Like, that's pretty definitive as well.
I mean, yeah.
No, I mean, it's fair enough to be nervous about it because it's going to. I don't see how it can't not have an impact on the broader industry. Hopefully, I would certainly hope. I would hope so. I mean, there's questions like how is it going to affect obviously QA as a specialization, how it's going to affect Raven and Activision Blizzard, especially how it's going to affect them in terms of the Microsoft buyout.
More on that later.
And what kind of inevitable retaliation there will be against attempts to unionize in the industry. So, I think it's fair that I think it's, if you feel invested in it, I think that's fair enough because it is going to be important. I mean, I think you'd have to be a CEO Randian libertarian or a sociopath to not see this as anything other than good news.
There's a difference between those things.
I mean, well, yes. I mean, the Venn diagram, there's a lot of purple in the middle.
Yeah, I was very invested in this. Like, I don't think, especially after last week's podcast, I don't think I could have come back to this week's podcast and been like, so it was a no vote and there's going to be no union. Like, the union busted it because, they tried their best, Activision Blizzard, to fucking destroy this union.
And that is, I mean, not to be the Debbie Downer, but that is going to step up.
Oh, big style. But we just have to wait and see. Like, it's like I always say. Sorry.
It's going to be. I mean, it's always, it's like things are always going to get worse before they get better. It's like
Master Wine.
There's always going to be resistance. The one thing, capital. Oh God.
Go for it.
This is about where I go full tank in. It's always going to. The one thing capital does not want is labor organizing to disrupt the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there is going to be a response to that, and whether that comes from Activision, probably not, because it's not their problem anymore. Whether it comes from Microsoft, we'll see. Whether or not this will become an industry-wide trend.
There is another studio currently in the process of trying to unionize. It's called Keywords. They're a support studio for BioWare Edmonton. I want to say it was Edmonton. It's Canada though. Montreal might also be the place I'm actually thinking of. As for you going straight in to talk about capitalism, honestly, like it's nice that somebody else goes there before I go there, because usually I'm the one that drives us there.
In my defense, it is a conversation about labor's rights and
exactly
in conflict with capital. So it's there's no way to not just sound like an unhinged Marxist when as soon as you start going, yay, unionization.
Spoiler alert for real life, kiddies. Most of the problems we're talking about are caused by capitalism.
Yeah. Unless you want me to both sides and say, well, unionization might not be the answer for everyone. But I'm not going to do that. Because like I say, I think it's hard not to view this as like unambiguously good.
It's a step,
but
and it's
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there will undoubtedly be some sort of retaliation, whether it happens within Raven or Activision Blizzard, or whether it happens throughout the industry, where other bigger studios will look at this and step up their efforts to make sure that this doesn't happen within their own studios. There will be something, but it's like I always say to especially Phil Elenius from Among Us, it's like one thing at a time. Like you just gotta do the thing. In this case, vote for this union, for this thing to happen, and then cool. And then we figure out what the next step is, or what the next problem is. It's like sometimes like you can overwhelm yourself by just taking in the whole picture all at once, and sometimes it's just like, okay, what's the one thing we do next to make things a little bit better? Cool, let's do that. And then you do the next thing, and then you do the next thing, and then so on. Then before you know it, you're 10 steps up the road. Turn around and be like, oh shit.
If nothing else, that's like a level of institutional knowledge about unionization that now exists in Raven software.
Yes.
Which means it now exists in Activision Blizzard, hopefully.
And will soon exist in Microsoft. That's where they're going. But yeah, it's good. This is an unambiguously good thing. See, I do good news too. Never said I didn't. Everybody's always like, "Ooh, doom, gloom."
Well, there's nothing happening. We haven't got to.
I mean,
what we are generally calling E3 this year.
Yeah, we haven't gotten through the next few news stories. Yikes.
Yeah, there's a theme.
It's coming. Don't worry, it will all become clear. Let's move on to the next news story. EA has reportedly suggested healing circles for staff concerned over abortion rights. This is from Joshua Robertson over at The Gamer. He writes, A new report has suggested that EA is refusing to speak out on issues such as Roe v. Wade and trans rights, as it claims, quote, being an inclusive company means being inclusive of all those points of view, end quote. In a new report from Kotaku, several employees have allegedly called on EA to make public statements regarding trans rights in the recent Roe v. Wade scandal during a town hall meeting with company leadership earlier this week. In response, Chief People Officer Mala Singh has apparently claimed that EA will only make public statements if it thinks they will, quote, actually have a positive impact, end quote, share a, quote, consistent perspective, end quote, amongst all of its global employees. One of the most bizarre parts of Kotaku's report is that Singh allegedly suggested that employees concerned or angered over current events like Roe v. Wade or topics such as trans rights should attend, quote, healing circles to join and process, end quote, their emotions for one another, with one another. Singh doesn't quite go into what these, quote, healing circles, end quote, actually are, but it's difficult to imagine they're anything other than Slack channels that employees can vent in. EA has responded to Kotaku's report, claiming it attempts, quote, to create an environment where our employees can talk about complex issues in our world today, end quote. In regards to why it won't make public statements on either Roe v. Wade or trans rights, EA's corporate communications director, Lacey Haynes, has explained that the publisher is, quote, focused on the ways we can support our people around the world as their employer, end quote. However, Haynes also reveals that EA will provide healthcare benefits to those who can't access them locally. My brain is rebooting. Healing circles, yeah? Oh, that'll do it, yeah. Absolutely. Do you want to go?
I mean, I'm not expecting a mass movement from corporate entities to speak on Roe v. Wade or trans rights in general. I think we need to sort of think of Bungie as being the outlier rather than the rule. And Bungie has the advantage of being a lot smaller and a lot more localized than EA. And, you know, at the end of the day, corporate entities are not moral actors and are not capable of being moral actors. And of course, they can't admit that, and they never will. And so it's kind of what I expect. I mean, it's depressing and it's a little funny and it's strange and it's kind of like very dystopian. But when you start talking about the healing circles, it's got like that. There's an element of that thing that Amazon gets flack for when they put in a little phone box that you can go and scream in when you feel a bit stressed out. It's like it's the mental health awareness, self-care. Let's unload all sources of unhappiness on the employee rather than actually do anything about it. And it still makes it a matter of individual responsibility.
It's like instead of supplying the phone boxes for people to scream into, what if we actually removed the need for there to be phone boxes for people to scream into?
What if we were less shitty to our employees?
Yeah, like
I'm not necessarily accusing you of that. Honestly, I'd probably respect EA more if EA just said we do not comment on political matters. It would be disingenuous because, of course, they do. I mean, they pulled out. What constitutes political? It's like pulling out of Russia is not political because that's just sort of built into this sort of like the imperialist case. Like, it's okay that Russia is a baddie country and pulling out of that. It's like that's not controversial. But having an opinion on, a woman's right to abortion or the base humanity of trans people, that's political. I kind of understand it, and I think in the context of this shit that Disney got for pulling funding from politicians over the Don't Say Gay bill, and now all the Republicans in America are talking about how Disney is like this woke Marxist project.
And now there are people waving Nazi flags outside of Disney World, and you just wonder how our world became what it is.
Yeah. And, that's happening to... I mean, EA is not even as big as Disney. It's like, they probably just don't want the headache. Like, we all know there is a section of the video game audience that is awful.
We do.
And I imagine EA just don't want to deal with them.
Well, no, they do want to deal with them. See, that's where this all comes down to. This is the thing I forgot to say last week, because obviously myself and Avril had a long talk about a lot of these issues last week, thanks to Jim Ryan over at Sony PlayStation.
Well, yeah, he needs to keep his cock shut.
And the thing about Jim Ryan, just like sending out his email, we're not gonna release a statement. EA now doing the same thing, is that they do want to talk to or deal with the gobshites and the gamergators. I'm just gonna say it. I'm putting out that keyword into the algorithm. They do want to deal with them because they want their money.
They're already the most oppressed people on the planet.
I know, right? What do I have against Gamergate? Like the gamers are like more oppressed than I am.
I'm so tired of this woke liberal agenda pressing gamers who just want to have, hairless women in their video games.
Hire fans, damn it. It's because they want to sell their games to those people, and if they're too woke, they won't buy their games. It's very transparent to anyone who bothers to pay attention, and it's tiring at this point.
It's the Netflix thing where it's like you want to have shows about trans people and about diversity, but you also want to platform bigoted assholes because you recognize that there's money in appealing to everyone.
Oh yeah,
and it's like it's Disney like desperately craving the validation of LGBTQ people, but not wanting to do anything that's actually going to meaningfully hurt their bottom line. I mean, in fairness to them, there's like they're not. Multiverse of Madness and Eternals is not being shown in Egypt because it's got, it acknowledges that gay people exist.
The gays exist. How now?
But it's like you want to be at Pride, you want people to come to your parks, but you don't want to actually have like on-screen representation because you ultimately want to sell your products abroad, and you want Cletus and Jim Bob sitting on their tractors to go and watch it.
Sure. Sure. Okay.
It's that kind of thing. Like the reason you're not making a stand is because you don't want to piss off awful people.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about not making a thing, everything is so polarized now, especially Roe v. Wade, bodily autonomy, trans rights, that I don't think corporations understand, or like the executives who are speaking out for these corporations understand, is like not having an opinion, not making a statement is actually making a statement.
Yeah, and I think that is something that is getting through to people, probably not people who matter, but I think the idea that there is no such thing as like political neutrality, like that is just inherently serving power.
Yeah, if you are passive, we talk again. If anyone listened to last week's episode, I'm obviously going to be touching on a lot of points that I touched on last week. But if you are like passive about, say, Roe v. Wade, that's what the people who want to take away abortion rights want. Like, they're not trying to, like, with their fucking batshit. Have you seen what this shit these people come out with? They're not trying to convince you of anything by coming out with this shit. They're trying to play to their own base and overload the conversation with such absolute fucking horseshit that people just get passive about it. Say, I'm sick of hearing about this, because then that's playing into what they want almost more than everybody suddenly coming out and suddenly being like, yeah, fuck people who have uteruses. Fuck abortions.
It's an attempt to reduce, moral issues, real world issues that affect people to a difference of opinion, in which we must agree to disagree, as if those opinions were one of equal validity, and two were both being made in equal faith.
Yeah.
when they're blatantly not. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, here at EA, we believe it's important to recognize multiple points of view. It's like, well, one point of view is I think women should have the right to an abortion, but also have the right to not have an abortion. The other point of view is women should have no abortions.
Yeah. Or
Like,
just
those are not, that's not an equal moral universe. Like
yeah.
one point of view seeks the elimination of the other point of view.
It's to speak to the part that I have some experience in, the trans rights issue. It's like one side of the equation is, can I have some rights, please? And the other side of the equation is, no, fuck off and die. And
What point of view is, yes, is trans people exist, can we have some healthcare? And the other point of view is, not only do trans people not exist, but trans people existing is a problem and we want them to go away.
Yeah, it's like there's no agree to disagree.
And to present them as not just as equivalent moral viewpoints, but as basically just dismiss them as a point of view. Like, I would imagine that if an employee at EA, came into work and expressed his support for the Nazi government of between 1933 and 1945, that would, at a minimum, mean a conversation with HR. So, if they would come in and say, well, actually, if someone came in and sent out an email saying, well, I think Putin's invasion of Ukraine is completely justified, I think that someone would probably want to talk to them. So the idea that there are no political sentiments that are beyond the pale is clearly ridiculous.
Yeah.
And now we're discussing what is and is not acceptable.
Yeah.
And if it's a broader conversation than EA, in fairness.
It is. Like I said, the royal we that we were talking about, Words About Games, has talked about this somewhat last week.
You could say about CNN, the BBC.
Let's not talk about the BBC right now. We'll be here all night. I take great issue with the suggestion that their refusal to speak out is to create an inclusive to create an inclusive company or be an inclusive company.
It's creating the exact opposite. It's basically saying we don't have a problem with bigots.
Yeah, like, oh, we have trans employees, but if they didn't have rights, we would be fine with that because we're inclusive of everybody.
It's the cross-punk Nazi bar problem, where if you let one Nazi in, he'll go and bring his mates around, and then you're a Nazi bar.
Yeah.
It's like, if a hypothetical employee EA says, I don't think trans people exist and they should go away, and I don't think that, or whatever, and you don't do something about it, then what's going to happen is that there's going to be more people who repeat the same thing. So it's not.
It's you're right. It's the Nazi bar equivalent, because what'll happen is that person will talk to other people in the company who hold the same views if nothing happens, and then your LGBTQ people will leave the company, and more people who are bigoted will come to the company, and all of a sudden you've got a company full of people who say what the first guy said.
Yeah, and as soon as you try to do anything to try to regulate that, it's like, oh well, you're stepping on my rights.
Yeah. Freedom of speech.
Because that's the other thing these people love to do, is they love to present themselves as the victims.
Oh yeah, Ricky Gervais is the victim. Dave Chappelle's the victim. J.K. Rowling is the victim.
So victimized. Oh, she got doxxed.
They all got. Yeah, she got her publicly available address got doxxed.
Her address that has its own Wikipedia entry got doxxed.
Oh, I'll tell you what, though, and I'll say the same thing about EA that I said about.
Which she meant there were some people outside her house with signs.
Yes, yes, that's all that happened. I will say the same thing about EA that I said about PlayStation last week, which is, like, in a couple of days, when you change all of your profile pictures on all of your social medias to rainbows, you can take those rainbow profile pictures and you can shove them directly up your ass. And if that sounds painful, go have a fucking healing circle about it.
I'm sure that it's going to be great. Yeah, but all the workers at Wayland-Yutani are going to feel much better when they change their color scheme to a rainbow as their stomachs burst from xenomorph eggs.
But yeah, But at least there's a pride flag on the wall.
It's like, oh, I feel seen.
I feel seen. Ah! Oh, God. Do you remember when, like, dystopia used to be, like, a fiction? It was a thing we read and watched in movies. And now it's just reality.
Fun.
It's just the world we live in now.
I watched Demolition Man recently. And I was like, "Oh God, this is what like libertarians think that this is the future liberals want. This is what they think the world is." And the worst thing that they can think about, the worst thing about something like Demolition Man is that you can't say rude words, and you don't get, you can't get to eat meat or eat salt, and it's like it's political correctness gone mad.
It's political.
And it's like, and meanwhile, it's like, a sort of like leftist vision of dystopia is the fucking Handmaid's Tale. The worst, the absolute nightmare for like, right-wing libertarians is I can't eat meat and swear.
I know, right? And as one of the leftist socialist snowflakes you're so scared about, I love to fucking swear and I eat meat all the time. So I don't think you've got too much to be scared about. Okay. Yeah.
I miss Christian Bale doing
fucking
karate to avoid bullets.
That's the dystopia. If you really want a like eye-opening experience, you should replay the original Deus Ex in 2022 because it's just like Jesus. There's a character in that game. It's like he was teleported from the future to like just say all of the things that are just commonplace in the world around us right now.
Or famously, Metal Gear Solid 2, its finale takes like a 20-minute break to predict memes and the downfall of like online discourse.
Oh, damn.
In 2002.
I feel like every time you come to this podcast, I get ever closer to playing Metal Gear Solid series because you just keep selling it to me really well.
You don't really play Metal Gear Solid.
It plays you.
The problem is like everyone talks about, oh, Metal Gear Solid, it's great, and they always talk about the great parts of it, and it's like, you forget the stupid bullshit. So wait, she's naked because she breathes through her skin?
Oh God, I did play that Metal Gear Solid game, thank you. Yes. She's naked because she breathes through her skin. And then there's a scene where she's dancing in the rain. There's a scene where she...
all the things you said.
Oh yeah, I bet you feel stupid now talking about a character design. No, actually, I'm watching the scene where she's dancing around in the rain, wondering how she's not drowning.
Well, how do plants not drown in rain?
What was her name? Quiet.
Quiet.
That was it. Yeah.
Because she didn't talk.
Yeah, of course she didn't. I could do a deep dive analysis on just that one thing, but I'm not going to. Instead, we're going to talk about PlayStation. PlayStation.
Fighting racist and men. That's what Metal Gear Solid taught me.
PlayStation is being sued over gender discrimination again. This is from Chris Kerr over at Game Developer. He writes, former PlayStation employee Emma Major is again attempting to sue the company for gender discrimination after an initial lawsuit against the console maker was dismissed by a federal judge. The previous lawsuit was largely dismissed due to a lack of, quote, specific facts, end quote, with U.S. Magistrate Judge Laurel Beeler explaining that Major failed to, quote, describe her work or how her work was substantially equal to the work of any male allegedly paid more than she was paid, end quote. Major was attempting to sue PlayStation for allegedly terminating her employment after she filed HR complaints over, quote, discrimination against females, end quote, relating to unequal pay. Although many of her claims were dismissed, Judge Beeler said Major could bring them back with more specific details. She's now done precisely that, and as reported by Axios, has filed a narrower complaint that seeks damages for women below the vice president level of PlayStation's California locations, as opposed to the first suit which sought damages on a national scale. The new lawsuit contains allegations from Major, many of which appeared in the first lawsuit, and other former and current women employees who describe being passed up for promotions at PlayStation while men in the same departments advanced, experiences of unequal pay, and discrimination in the form of dismissive comments about the abilities of women. The suit claims PlayStation has, quote, a systemic pattern and practice of gender discrimination, end quote, that has caused those women involved harm, including, quote, lost compensation, back pay, employment benefits, and emotional distress, end quote. It also accuses PlayStation of breaching California's Equal Pay Act. Sony will now be allowed to reply to those claims, which have previously been described by PlayStation's legal team as, quote, unactionable allegations, end quote. Yeah, I remember the first lawsuit. They basically said, you can't prove it, mate.
It's gender discrimination defense 101, which is it descends into he said, she said, and becomes unprovable, which is
for the most part, Riot Games had to pay a lot of money, which was nice to see. You do love to see it, but I do enjoy the back and forth of this. PlayStation's legal team going, you can't prove it, and then Emma Major coming back with other women who currently work at PlayStation as well as other former employees of PlayStation going, well, here you go, let's have this one. I don't know that there's that much I can really add to this story right now.
I feel like you could lift Sony's name out of it completely and replace it with...
Oh, I don't know. Microsoft? Foreshadowing.
I mean, we could just jump straight to that. It's more or less...
It's seamless. We will. But yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning because I've been incredibly... I don't know if disappointed is even the right word. I don't know if disappointment is even an emotion I can feel anymore about the state of the coverage of stories like this within like video game circles. To say that the first time this happened, no one talked about it. The second time this has happened, no one's talking about it. Everybody likes PlayStation.
Probably the way to look at it is this is the sort of thing that once upon a time just didn't get talked about at all. So the fact that we are talking about it is probably a good thing.
This is kind of the sliver of a thread that I've been holding on to for the past few years while all of this stuff comes out is like, we are talking about it now.
There's an element of like, not even an element, it's more or less the same as the Me Too conversation, which is...
I mean, yeah.
Are we better off knowing the scale? I mean, it's probably not good for our mental health, but it's probably objectively a good thing that it's out in the open.
Right.
And that it's known.
Maybe we can't change...
And that women are talking to each other about it.
Yes.
And hopefully educating men about it.
I mean, yeah, right. It's like maybe we can't change entire companies like Activision Blizzard or PlayStation, but like maybe we can change things in smaller ways within like departments or within like whatever. Maybe like we can't change all of the men who do these things, but maybe we can get some more men to listen and realize that this is happening. Because like when Me Too happened and when this is starting, this has been happening for years at this point. Like this talking about it has been happening for years at this point, and people, men specifically, who work in some of these companies that have been talked about gender discrimination, have been shocked to see that this happens so frequently, so regularly, and like, like I get mad at that because it's just like all you have to do is pay attention to what's happening around you because it's everywhere. But at the same time, it's also like, okay, but at least now you know, what are you gonna do about it? And hopefully some of them will do something about it. That's the sliver of a thread that I'm holding on to. That's what I'm hanging by, if I'm being honest. It's been a long few years. I started a podcast to talk about video games thinking it would be fun.
It could
and it is sometimes. But I've peeked beyond the curtain and learned too much.
Well, yeah, it's like. I mean, it's. I mean, yeah, this is a little bit sort of like behind the curtain, but you can. Oh, I can't believe what I was going to say. It was going to be really insightful. I'm sure it's going to blow your mind.
I believe it.
It's like.
He's looking for it. He's looking. I hate it when that happens. That happened to me last week.
It's really annoying. So you can tell how often I'm on pod.
No, it's fine. I've done 300 of these, plus like about 100, 200 episodes of other people's podcasts. I don't know. I've lost count, and like it still happens to me. It happened to me last week.
So you can approach this conversation like about video games, like you wanted to be just like writing about fun toys and not engaging with the politics of it and the culture that produce. And it's it is a choice. And if someone just wants to make a podcast where they talk about how excited they are for Mario Kart DLC or whatever, that's fine and that's valid. But I also think it is very useful and very important to say, well, actually, we're going to talk about the context in which games are made, because that doesn't necessarily get talked about as much.
It's true. I mean, I am. Barry, you've known me for the entire time I've done this as a blog followed by a podcast and a YouTube channel, and you've seen the journey I've been on from where I started to where I am now, and I'm very open about it. I was like, I fell down a specific rabbit hole a long time ago, and then along with yourself and other people helped pull me out of that rabbit hole, and then I just wanted to talk about video games themselves, and then I made a conscious decision to say, no, actually, we should talk about things like this, and then everything caught fire, and I decided I'm going to stand directly in the middle of this fire and scream about it.
I think it's brave. I mean, listen, if it was my video game podcast, it's probably not something I would. It's probably not a choice I would have made. So I respect the heckings out of you for doing it.
Thank you. I wasn't looking for that, but I'll take it.
I don't know how useful that is, but
I mean, you know what? Like, I say this a lot on Twitter. And
so don't beat yourself up about it.
I don't beat myself up about anything anymore. Like I've gone beyond the point of care. Like I was talking to a content creator friend of mine. We were on a Discord call, and she just started. She's got a lot. She's got a lot going for her on Twitch, and she's just started publishing videos on YouTube. And we were talking about the differences between like YouTube and Twitch and like all that stuff. And like we just started talking about the comments that we both get that get held for review. and legitimately, like we were just talking about how funny we both found them, like our own individual like hate comments, and it's just like someone took time out of their day to write this essay. And I find that really funny because I'm never gonna care, because I'm never gonna even let it appear on the video.
Another way to frame it is somebody wasted time in their day to do.
But yeah,
because I would take it all.
There was a time when I used to like let it sort of affect me, and now it's just happened so frequently that I just do not care anymore. Like
it's YouTube. It's someone who doesn't have anything better to be doing.
Exactly. It's like I do this podcast. I put the show notes together. I think about what I'm going to talk about. Think about the things that I'm going to say, and then I edit it and I hit publish on it, and then I don't think about it again. Like that's it. It's done. But no, it's I don't want to center myself in any of these discussions, to be very honest. But so yeah, I'll stop there. But we'll see what happens with the PlayStation lawsuit.
Cut all of this as much as you want.
No, I don't edit. The discussion that we have is a discussion that we have. I'm very, very much of the mind of we do it live.
All right. Well, this would be a good time for me to spend half an hour talking about it, please. Then.
Yeah, I mean, you can if you want, but right now it's off time. Which means it's time for Indie Game of the Week. This is the thing we started doing this year, where we look for cool indie games that are coming out sometime in the future, and we talk about them as part of our Indie Game of the Week. And then there's links to usually the Steam store pages in the description below, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast. So you can go and wishlist them because they're cool. And this week's Indie Game of the Week. Can you tell I haven't scripted an actual intro to this segment yet? It's very chaotic. One day I'll get around to it. But this week's Indie Game of the Week is Spirittea. It has got a very interesting style of Steam store description that I'm going to read. Wait, who the heck are you? Can you see me? You can, can't you? You've drunk the Spirittea, and now you can see me. Look, we've got problems. The town is crawling with troublemaking spirits. They've become lost because humans have stopped worshipping, leaving offerings, or even thinking about them anymore. This is, well, used to be a nice town, but there have been some strange goings on lately. You're going to find the spirits causing mayhem and fix their problems so they can become paying customers and get to know the townspeople and explore the mountain to its fullest. And that is the description of the game. It's developed and published by No More Robots. It's coming soon to PC via Steam. And again, there is a link in the description below wherever you get your podcast. Me and Patrick did actually do a little bit extra research on what this game actually is, and it's very Stardew Valley adjacent, I think is a good way to describe it.
The Kotaku article and says it's Stardew Valley meets Spirited Away. So that's a heckins of a sales
That's a hell of a sales pitch.
That's how you do it. I know you can't say it in your Kickstarter, but
Yeah, that would have done it. Like, oh yeah, I'd say it was those 5 words? No, Spirited Away meets Stardew Valley. 6 words. I'm in.
That's what they call a comp title in the business.
I'll take your word for it. That's Indie Game of the Week. Go check it out. Go wishlist it. Go follow the developers over on their social medias. Do all that cool stuff. If you want some more Indie Games of the Week, keep listening on the podcast. So go back. We've been doing this all of 2022. It's been great. I'm going to make a list, I think, and put it somewhere of just like, these are all of our Indie Games of the Week. You can check out all of the old ones. I'm going to do that. Going to write a note to myself right now. Just check Indie Game of the Week list. There you go. Done. Shall we get back to the podcast, the meat of the podcast?
By all means.
I love it when foreshadowing pays off. Microsoft staff accuse execs of misconduct and abuse. This is from Jeffrey Rousseau over at GamesIndustry.biz, who writes, employees at tech giant Microsoft have accused current leaders Alex Kipman, Tom Keene, and former executive vice president Terry Myerson of inappropriate behavior, including instances of misconduct and verbal abuse. As reported by Insider, dozens of current and former staffers allege that the executives have had impunity for their actions dating as far back to when Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates were in charge. Ballmer left the company in 2014. Bill Gates stepped down as CEO in 2008 and left the board in 2020 after an investigation into a relationship with a female employee. One of these instances involved Kipman, who has been with the company for over 20 years, allegedly watching virtual reality pornography during a meeting. Insider says that a group of staffers reported dozens of allegations against Kipman, which resulted in no apparent actions or reprimanding. The site's sources say they've witnessed Kipman create a culture that diminishes the contributions of women. Keene, another 20-year vet, was described as an executive who would, quote, cut people down to pieces, end quote. A former executive described the time when Keene stopped a meeting to reprimand an employee, reducing her to tears. The report continues and notes that Myerson had a history of verbally abusing employees during his tenure. He left the company in 2018 following a public incident in which he berated staff at a company event. A source explained that instances such as these would get the attention of CEO Satya Nadella. Quote, if it's something seriously egregious, he will address it, end quote, said a woman who works directly with Nadella. Excuse me a sec. Just clearing my throat there. Quote, but it has to be something that puts him at risk, end quote. The report also goes on to say that Microsoft's efforts for racial equity are comparable to tokenism. one black employee explained, quote, "I do a ton of interviews only to check a minority box. I waste a bunch of my time and everybody else's time," end quote. Additionally, following Microsoft's agreement to purchase Activision Blizzard, a company with a number of reported workplace allegations, some of the tech giant's employees voiced concerns with the merger. A Microsoft employee told Insider, quote, "We can't even take care of our own house, and now we just bought one in worse condition," end quote. Well said. Yeah. Shit. So,
Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, I don't know whether this feels like I'm patting myself on the back, but me and Moody talked about two different stories of two different problems at two different Microsoft-owned developers over the past, I think, a couple of months. It's been a couple of months, and at the conclusion of talking about the second one, which is Undead Labs, the State of Decay developers, we both kind of looked at each other and thought, this is like, I know 2 isn't really much of a pattern, it's a line, but we were kind of looking at it going, thinking, and we said it out loud in the podcast, this is troubling for what comes next, and what comes next is I probably should think of a better way to phrase that, is here, right in front of me right now.
Once is misfortune, twice is coincidence, and 3 times is enemy action.
And I don't believe in coincidences. Yeah, that works.
3 times is a pattern.
Okay, 3 times is a pattern. Well, I have a pattern now. I'm going to say something Moody says, and I hate it when he says it, but this did not surprise me in the slightest when it finally broke out last week. That this goes on everywhere. This is the point when we keep saying this is a systemic issue. It's like, this is what systemic means. It happens everywhere. It's just we haven't heard about it at X, Y, and Z places yet. Do you have anything?
It's important because I definitely feel like there was a narrative when Microsoft announced that they were buying Activision.
Yes.
That, Microsoft will get it sorted out. Like,
I know,
Microsoft, we'll be able to sort this out. It's like, again, we call it a systemic issue because it is an issue with the system, this is at a minimum industry-wide, if not society-wide.
Yeah.
It was kind of waiting for the ball to drop. I actually did the absolute bare minimum of research on these people I could, by which I mean I went on their Wikipedia entries and LinkedIn.
Okay.
2 of these guys have Wikipedia entries, so they're not small potatoes.
Sure.
They're all, so Alex Kipman is a technical fellow of Microsoft. He was like one of the team leads on Kinect and HoloLens, if you want to sort of connect it to video games.
I mean,
Keen was a corporate VP. Lyman was he headed up the mobile team and was executive vice president at operating systems. So these aren't small people. Like, these are like people like quite high up in the Microsoft like corporate chain. Like, they're probably, I'd imagine at least one was probably played golf with Bill Gates at some point. And they're also not like, I was imagining these like silver-haired men in their 60s who it was the 70s and like sort of like it was something out of Mad Men. Like, they're actually kind of like youngish dudes. Like, Kipman's like 42.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
not older than I am.
No, I mean, like, we've seen like with certain allegations of like other companies in the past, like the people who do the bad stuff. Like, some of them aren't very old at all. It's not like, oh, they're from a different generation. No, some of them are from our generation. Some of them are probably younger than us. Like,
it's a cultural issue. Like, it's a culture that's inculcated. You can't sort of dismiss it as just boys being boys.
No, you can't. Yeah. You touched on something. I probably did get swept up in that narrative a bit when Activision Blizzard first got bought, quote unquote.
It's understandable because we all know what Activision, and Activision specifically, is.
Yeah.
And yeah, the allegations about Blizzard didn't help. Like we have spent as a society, as consumers, we have spent so much time focused on how bad Activision is.
Yes.
We all know Bobby Kotick is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
We've known for years that he's not a great human being. So I think there was a lot of people who sort of rushed to think that Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard was objectively a good thing. And I think I don't think this should be the thing that necessarily makes people like think twice. I think even if it wasn't for this, I think the consolidation of media companies is not particularly healthy.
This is true.
But the idea that, oh, well, this wasn't also happening at Microsoft. It's like, well, I'm not sure. Again, no one is shocked. The question then needs to become like, what sort of scale is it at? How often does this happen? Because these people are quite high up.
Sure.
If not high up, it's almost certainly happening at a product level lower down. I mean, I'm not in the industry. I can't.
Yeah, we are reaching where we are entered the speculation zone.
So I'm not suggesting that Microsoft are hosting wild keggers and touching up waitresses. So
anymore.
That's not necessarily fair. But I think, like, coming up from like sort of like observation of the video games media, I think the story that Microsoft was going to come in and sort of save Activision, probably that was probably something that needed to be addressed.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, again, like I feel like when it all happened after the shock wore off that this was even happening, it was right at the beginning of the year, because we had to do an emergency special podcast because we were in the midst of doing like Game of the Year and stuff, and it was just like we didn't have space for a news on our podcast. So yeah, it was definitely the beginning of the year, and like I did sort of get swept up in the hey, maybe they can help change Activision Blizzard's culture, because they are seeing, especially with like Phil Spencer and the way that they've done things and talked about things and the initiatives that they put forward and the things that they say and the statements that they make, they have been seen over the last sort of couple of years as good guys. So I think it was easy to get swept up in that narrative, but eventually critical thinking kicks in, and I think you start thinking maybe not.
I mean, we're probably just relitigating the acquisition now, but I think a lot of it sort of came down to there was an element of console warness to it, which is our side's got a win, and it's just a sort of weird metagaming. This where we're sort of doing the public relations for $1 trillion company.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there is an argument to say that everything we do on Twitch and YouTube is doing the PR for.
Our guys have won. Ooh, how is Sony going to respond? It's like, well, do Sony have to respond?
No.
It's like that's not the narrative necessarily. No. It's like it might well have nothing to do with Sony. Like, oh, Sony's got to respond, then Sony's buying Bungie in response. It's like, who's going to buy?
Who's next? Who's going to buy Ubisoft? Who's going to buy you? Yeah, I have tried to stay away from that as much as possible in podcasts and stuff.
It's sort of like, because we have created these sort of like weird brand loyalties to like Team Microsoft and Team Sony and Team Nintendo.
Treat them like football teams. Yeah.
Yeah. Or more to the point, like political parties. Which
we also treat like football teams.
It's like, it's about my side winning. Or, what does this mean for the other side? It's like, that's probably not a healthy way to look.
Well, I mean, like you can drill right through what you just said and all the way down to this. This is one of the root problems in society right now. Is we become tribal. Like tribalism takes effect. Whether it's you're talking about political parties or you're talking about Microsoft versus Nintendo versus Sony, and then my side has to win no matter what. Whereas, like, that, by doing that, you then take nuance and burn it, and it does become a thing. And I think that's incredibly unhealthy in terms of just about everything that we talk about here on this podcast.
When Disney buys Fox, you don't think, oh, well, that's a terrible consolidation in media companies and maybe we should talk about monopolies. People think, well, now the X-Men can be in the MCU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why I stopped watching the MCU. Like, subconsciously might be one of the reasons why I stopped watching the MCU. Maybe. I've never thought about it like that before.
We're getting off.
Yeah,
topic
it's
there,
yeah. I'm not a big fan of mergers and acquisitions, like you say, like for the reasons that you just pointed out.
Part of me thinks that the MCU should probably have ended with Endgame. Like that feels
Conclusive.
final.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, and I'm not knocking anybody who still continues to enjoy the MCU.
Of course not, absolutely not. But part of me does think that probably would have been a good time to end it.
Yes, it's in the title, Endgame, but
At least let everything else be more standalone. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
if nothing else, I don't think Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard necessarily is going to make. I don't think it's going to make the situation worse.
but yeah. Again, it's like one of those tiny threads that you hold on to. It's just like, I mean, they say like as a corporation, as with Phil Spencer, like as the face of it, like they do say and do a lot of positive things. Like so, like that's what I've just got to hold on to and just think, like maybe Microsoft can turn things around, hopefully, because I always try and make sure that the thing that I'm centering when I'm talking about things like this is the people that work at the companies, like the people that make the games. Because for all the shit slinging I do towards Activision Blizzard or Ubisoft or Rockstar Games, like I'm shit slinging at the companies themselves, not necessarily like the people who work there, like the people who make like Far Cry or Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. I almost called it Gran Turismo there. Like really cool, like for the majority, really cool, really awesome, really incredibly talented people who should be able to go to work and not have to worry about gender discrimination or not have to worry about abuse and not have to worry about their companies coming out and saying it's okay to be a bigot here. Like they should just be able to just be cool and be awesome and be talented. And I wish that was the case, and I would love for that one day to be the case. But I think there's a lot of work to do to get to that point.
The show tonight is, fucking around leading to finding out. I think it's probably why it's good to start the unionization story, because this is a reminder of why unionization is a good thing.
It's a reminder of the power of collective bargaining, like the power of unity. Like those Raven QA testers, there's not that many of them inside a huge corporation, and we've talked about it on this podcast for weeks and months. Like they've faced a lot from Activision Blizzard to try and get them not to do this, and they've stood up and done it anyway. And that is going to hopefully be create a ripple that spreads out through the games industry. And would that have happened if we weren't aware of the issues at Activision Blizzard and we weren't speaking about the issues at Activision Blizzard? Maybe not. But whatever happened in the past few months with regards to Raven and Activision Blizzard, it worked in this instance. So let's keep doing that thing and extrapolate it and do it for everything.
Yeah, the Microsoft and the PlayStation story, it's the same story really, but they're both reminders that companies are not going to get their house in order by themselves. Like, no. There has to be some sort of external pressure upon them. And if it's not going to be broader society and it's not going to be the government, it will probably end up being their own employees.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And in that regard, yes, collective bargaining, unionization is not only a good thing, but necessary.
Yeah. Pressure for change. That's what Foxes used to say when he was on this podcast. And I really like that as like a statement. And I think that's what needs to happen. Like, you're right. Like, a company, it's not in a company's best interest to change for the better unless it's forced to in some way.
And I mean, I know we get cynical about the pride thing, but the fact that the companies are all going to pride is in itself a symbol of the fact of how things have changed. Yes, okay, they're manipulating it for cynical reasons, blah blah blah, but these things do change slowly over time,
Ooh,
incrementally, but it doesn't mean it's not worth pushing for it.
yeah. It's always worth pushing, and I believe that 1,000,000%. Um, that's why this podcast exists in the form that it currently does, and I think that's a good place to go into the next news story. I deleted the next Xbox one, the streaming sticks. Who cares? Because I think this is a really good sort of segue into the next thing that is on here, which is a group of Activision Blizzard employees have formed an anti-discrimination committee. This is from Chris Scullion over at VGC, who writes, a new anti-discrimination committee has been set up by 12 current and former Activision Blizzard employees. The Washington Post reports that the new group submitted a list of demands on Tuesday to Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick, Diversity Officer Kristen Hines, and Chief Human Resources Officer Julie Hodges. Among the list of demands on the 4-page list include workers to be able to meet with the workers to be able to meet with the Equal Employment Opportunity Coordinator appointed as part of the federal sexual harassment settlement, ending undocumented chats with human resources, restricting retaliation against employees who file disputes, setting up independent investigations on discrimination claims, an end to mandatory arbitration in discrimination cases, which stops workers suing their employer, and private lactation rooms. One of the members of the group, Blizzard senior motion graphic designer Emily Knife, told the Washington Post, quote, my hope in joining the committee is that we don't let the fervor die down until there is meaningful, long-lasting change. At the end of the day, I would like to go into work and not have to think about anything but my work. But based on everything that has been happening, even well before it broke through the headlines, it has been taking up a sizable portion of my day having to think about the inaction of leadership, end quote. Activision Blizzard spokesperson Jessica Taylor responded to the Post report by stating, quote, we appreciate that these employees want to join with us to further build a better Activision Blizzard and continue the progress we have already made. We have, for example, already upgraded our lactation facilities, waived arbitration, hired new DEI and EEO leaders, and collaborated with employees to make our policies and processes more trans-inclusive, just to name a few issues the letter raises, end quote. However, the article claims the numerous workers remain dissatisfied with general progress despite these steps. AQ tester Fabi Gaza told the Post, quote, Activision Blizzard has given us the most basic of improvements, and it feels like we have fought for those tooth and nail. Stuff like contractors getting converted into full-time employees, stuff like the small raises we've gotten. That doesn't feel like enough. If they want to be shown as an inclusive company that protects their employees, they should accept each and every one of these demands, end quote. It just felt like that was a good place to go next after the discussion we just had. Felt relevant. So this is what I would consider the finding out part. Yeah, this is like the next step. It's the thing I was talking about near the top of the podcast, where it's like one step at a time. The part I really vibe with is from Emily Knife. He talks about joining the committee and hoping this stuff like this won't let the fervor die down until there is meaningful, long-lasting change, because that's where I think we need to. That's where I think these companies need to go. The people working in these companies need to fight for long-lasting change, not just whatever platitudes will get the PR nightmare to end. Long-lasting change would be better. That's why I celebrated Raven Software's QA department unionizing, because, without a union, they are at the mercy of whatever their management says, and they can do pretty much whatever they want with that and get away with it. I'm losing my train of thought here. Pyric, take it away. Sorry, you didn't come through. You didn't come through there. Sorry, Pyric.
Sorry. No, I think that covers most of it. It's like it sort of it's going along with what I've been saying, which is that it's good that there are movements from within put pressure on management to improve conditions. And having just listed, a whole bunch of reasons why these things are necessary.
Sure. I wonder if Washington Post P.
No, that's not a terribly useful insight, I'm sorry.
It is. It's fine. I found it useful, so therefore it is useful. I just had a thought. I was wondering if the Washington Post article might have, because it's a 4-page list, and we read a few of the bullet points. I was wondering if you had all of them.
Might be behind the paywall.
It's not behind a paywall, but it is asking me to sign in. I can see a very small portion of the article. But that might be all I need. It does not have the full list. That's a shame. I would have liked to have seen that full list, but it's all like, the annoying part is it's like the bullet points that I can see in the article that we got from VGC. Things like private lactation rooms, independent investigations on discrimination claims, etc., etc. This should be the foundational stuff, and the fact that they're having to fight tooth and nail just to get these things is not good. It's not a good sign. But they're getting them. Yeah, this should be the baseline, and then we go from there.
Amongst other things, these are things that I would consider baseline.
Yeah, it's like I said last week about during my unhinged hour-long PlayStation rant. It's like the human rights part, the part where like we give people human rights, should be the starting point, and then anything behind that gets discarded. It's like, this stuff is basic, and it should be in all workplaces in the video game industry. It should be in all workplaces altogether. But like we need to get these and then move forward.
Yeah, and biggest belief that company the size of an Activision, that presumably wants to diversify its workforce, doesn't have places where people can breastfeed.
Yeah. Like, there's no private lactation rooms. Why? Like, why? And I mean, I know why, because I've been reading about Activision Blizzard for the last 12 months. It's because they have a hostile work environment towards women.
Generous interpretation is because you didn't think that you would need to consider the needs of the women and people and people who lactate generally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what happens when you have. It's what happens. Hold on. No, I can tie this all back to the beginning of the podcast. It's what happens when you have 19 employees making decisions that will affect 350 employees. The employees in this case being the executives, who I imagine made these decisions and were all white and all men. Like,
well, they're certainly all men.
They're all men. Yes, it's the thing.
They've probably never lactated.
They've probably.
I really hate that word. I wish we could just say breastfeeding.
People who have never.
I'm sorry.
People who have never lactated. Let's go with that. Yeah, it's the hand dryer problem, with the sensor, and it was made by It was made by a company who were all white, and then they programmed it, and they tested it, and then they sent it out, and then it only responded to white people's hands, and it didn't activate if you were black, because there was nobody at the company to think about that, because none of them were black. This is why you hire diverse people at all levels of your company and talk to them and listen to them. Because then you don't end up in a ridiculous situation where you don't have private lactation rooms. And I know we're focusing on private lactation rooms when there's like all this other stuff, but
Well, that's the one that seems like. Everything else is like related to employment rights. I can't even understand it, but that's the one that's related to a fairly basic human function, which is feeding your child.
Truth. Right. Activision Blizzard, eh?
and it also gets into the male gaze and how we've sexualized breastfeeding and like, but that's by the by.
Yeah.
But it's bad. I don't mean I get hung up on it. But...
No, I'm just remembering there was some breastfeeding stuff that happened on Twitter. Don't worry about it. It's not relevant at all.
I can imagine. Like,
okay, so I'm looking at the time of the podcast. We got 2 news stories left. Patrick, I'm going to give you the ultimate honor of the Words About Games podcast. Which one do you want to do? We've got time for one of the next 2 news stories.
One of them is just Reggie Fils-Aimé thinks there should be more diversity in the industry. So
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. That's also kind of a no shit, and we've been talking about it. So let's talk about Batgirl.
Let's talk about Batgirl. We like Batgirl. Batgirl's
Go. On the subject of someone should have fucking stopped this.
How many people did this pass before somebody realized it was a bad idea?
That was literally my point. That we'll get to it.
We'll get to it, yeah, we'll get to it. Batgirl's controversial Gotham Knights biography has been reworked. This is from Marcus Stewart over at Game Informer. He writes, Warner Brothers Montreal has altered Batgirl's biography in Gotham Knights following backlash about the game's explanation for her paralysis recovery. Batgirl, aka Barbara Gordon, is one of Gotham Knights' 4 playable characters alongside Nightwing, Robin, and Red Hood in a story that sees the Bat family defending Gotham after Bruce Wayne's death. In the 1988 comic story The Killing Joke, Barbara is famously shot through the spine by the Joker, paralyzing and confining her to a wheelchair for many years, in which she lent tech and information support to Batman as Oracle. In DC's 2011 New 52 comic reboot, Barbara regains her mobility due to an experimental surgery followed by physical therapy and training. Per Eurogamer, the Gotham Knights' original website biography for Batgirl vaguely referenced these events. It doesn't mention the Joker or a specific culprit, even though I'm pretty sure that scene was shown in one of the Batman games previously, but okay. But the offending bit was the implication that Barbara overcame her disability just by training hard. You can read the relevant section of the bio below. Don't mind if I do. Quote, after a face-off that put Barbara in a wheelchair, she became Oracle, a powerful information and communications expert. But her father's death spurred her to train and recover from her wounds so that she could return to active duty as Batgirl, end quote. We'll get into that in a moment. Some fans criticized Warner Brothers Montreal for misusing this kind of heroic training trope, feeling it undermined her disability. The studio addressed these complaints in a recent Discord Q&A where creative director Patrick Renning elaborated on Barbara's recovery by saying, quote, as with many of our character and plot elements, the circumstances around Barbara's injuries differ in some important ways from how it's been portrayed in the comics. Barbara has been through multiple surgeries followed by a lot of physical therapy and pain management in Gotham Knights, end quote. Renning states that the biography has been rewritten. It now reads, quote, with extensive training and rehabilitation, she recovered from her wounds and returned to active duty as Batgirl, end quote. Warner Bros. Montreal is also working with disability charity organisation Able Gamers, quote, to learn about different types of spinal injuries and the potential for someone to regain mobility, end quote. To that end, the team says players will see Barbara doing rehab exercises in the Belfry hideout, and her batsuit and civilian clothing will include back bracing. You could just skip all the way to the last paragraph of this news post, and if Warner Brothers had just done this part in the first place, all of this could have been avoided. Yeah.
So there's. Do you want to start? Or?
Go for it.
Okay, so the issue with the original statement.
The original bio. Which basically says she had a Rocky montage.
Yeah, it's so the reason this is problematic, and I say this as an able-bodied man, so take what I say with a grain of salt, is that it frames disability as a moral failing.
Yes.
That if you are disabled, then you just need to work hard to magically get rid of your disability.
Oh, you're not working hard enough.
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, exactly. It sort of ties into a very ugly narrative that disability is something that can be overcome, which is very convenient in fiction, but also very dismissive of disabled people in real life. It's not like, Batman has form doing this. Like, this is literally like Batman's internal struggle in The Dark Knight Rises when Bane breaks his back and then he magically pops it back into place and does CrossFit for a few weeks.
It's just like, oh, I just needed to really stretch it out,
So,
and now I'm
yeah,
not, and now my back isn't broken anymore.
it's not even that they don't have form with this, and it's like there's a number of ways they could have done this. One is that they didn't have to use Barbara Gordon to play Batgirl. They could have chosen one of the other They could have chosen like Stephanie Brown or Cassandra Cain, sidestep the issue entirely.
Cassandra Cain would have been a good one.
I do think that there is value in having, a disabled character in a game and having them be visible. And I think it sort of ties into the argument that when Barbara Gordon recovered in 2011 with New 52, there was a discussion, or at least I read a discussion about whether or not it would be better for her to remain Oracle and have a visibly disabled superheroine who's still capable, still useful, still attractive, still physically capable, like she'll beat you up, or whether it's better for her to return to being Batgirl because she is by far and away the most prominent and well known.
Sure.
But she just becomes another part of the Bat family. Like, I mean, I don't wish to be mean spirited, but Batgirl's not fundamentally like that different from any number of DC superheroes. Whereas Oracle stands out as something
Yeah,
else.
that makes. I mean, I can see the sense. I wasn't really reading DC comics for around the New 52 era, so I didn't see any discussions like this. I didn't even know that this was a thing until very more recently.
It's a discussion that came up because Barbara Gordon was essentially in a wheelchair from 1988 till 2011.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about the Killing Joke and what
I
happened.
mean, that's another issue, is that the Killing Joke was also written as a very kind of it used as a very misogynistic trope of, just sort of like treating women as disposable.
Yeah.
Like Barbara Gordon essentially shot by the Joker to create drama for
Jim Gunn and Batman.
And in fairness to DC, they did utilize that to give us Oracle, who's an interesting and powerful character. And so there is a discussion to be had, but that's probably not.
I mean,
directly.
Yeah. Whether it's the Oracle from Gotham Knights or the Oracle from Batman Arkham Asylum, I think she'd still kick most people's butt or punch most people's butt.
Right. But again, if you really want to have Batgirl, you could just sidestep this. But on the other hand, it's actually there's a discussion to be had about whether it's best to dive into this or not. With that said, with the choices that they have made, is Gotham Knights in continuity with the Arkham series?
I believe it is.
In which Barbara Gordon is in the wheelchair and she's Oracle.
She was Oracle in the previous games, yeah. But again, I believe it is. I'm not 100% sure that this is another Arkham game.
No, I'm not either, so that's sort of why I'm asking it.
But according to her bio, she was Oracle and she was in the wheelchair. So
what this suggests to me is that no one at WB flagged this up. Like no one, and it could just be that this is just the copy was faulty, but either no one at WB is disabled, or no one at WB was hired as a sensitivity reader. Like this, it sort of beggars belief that a company that big doesn't have someone on staff to catch this kind of thing, because they clearly are aware that part of Barbara Gordon's backstory is that she has been disabled, because they've got character animations of her doing physio in the belfry, and her in the back brace. So it's part of the character. So they knew, but they didn't think to run it past someone.
No, until it was pointed out in the bio, and now obviously they're working with Able Gamers. Able Gamers is a fantastic charity organization, and I saw some tweets by people.
And in fairness to them, they have walked this back, but it also shouldn't have happened in the first place. Like, I mean, again, I'm an able-bodied man, and I read this and I was like, yikes.
Yeah,
an interesting frame disability.
They've done the right thing, but it shouldn't probably have taken what it took for them to actually do the right thing.
No, there should be. They knew they were dealing with disability, and it's kind of weird to me that they didn't send. I mean, maybe they did, I don't know, but it suggests to me that nobody sent the copy to be read over by a sensitivity
Well,
reader, and they really
yes, we've seen this happen very recently with Activision Blizzard, and their diversity stat block, which we've been laughing about for the last couple of weeks. And it's the same thing. It's just like there's a much simpler solution to this, where you just hire people who are diverse.
involve disabled people.
Yeah.
I mean, Activision stat block. Yeah. I feel like it's a very like tech bro, programmer solution to sort of like provide an algorithm to say this is how diverse this character is.
Yeah, I mean, we had a good laugh at their Mario character comparisons.
I think it's heart's in the right place, but also you didn't think this through. That I mean, it didn't need. I don't know if it hadn't been public, maybe they'd thought.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they made it public. They thought it was a great idea to tell people about it. Yeah, it wasn't like it leaked or anything.
We told them that maybe ranking exactly how disabled or how not white someone isn't the best look.
Yeah, it's like, well, hang on. How gay is all the way gay? How much gender is maximum gender?
Yes, it's like yes, yes. This character is a 2 on gender. What is a 10?
I'm trapped in an existential nightmare. Yeah, I'm glad they reversed course on this. And I'm glad they went out and worked with a disabled charity to actually go ahead and fix this.
And I'm actually glad that they're kind of addressing Barbara Gordon being someone who was disabled and is presumably still living the consequence of it, because the bloody comics don't.
No, I can't. I haven't read a comic for a long time. But yeah,
I won't say that I've been keeping up with Batgirl, but I did read Gail Simone's run in which she gets better, for want of a better term. And it, DC did this big thing saying, "Oh, we're going to honor the legacy of the character, when she's not just going to get a magic cure," and then she pretty much got the magic cure. It was literally she went to a clinic in South America and got experimental surgery and came back and was Batgirl again. And it's a perfectly serviceable run, but her trauma is brought up, like her PTSD is sort of mentioned, like a sort of like learning to sort of get into a new mental state is addressed. But after that, I don't know that they ever really sort of talk about her dealing with her condition in the way that this seems to be.
Well,
I hope.
Hopefully, yeah. We'll see the final game in October if it comes out on time.
I mean, I might be way off base on that. I don't know.
We'll see. It's a case of we'll obviously have to wait and see what's in the game. It's a 4-player, it's a 4-person, it's a 4-character game. I think it's got multiplayer. I'm hoping it's got multiplayer anyway. And Batgirl is going to be my main. Me and Moody have already thought about it. I won.
Oh, yes, Batman, Nightwing, Red Hood, Robin. It's like, well, Batgirl is clearly the most interesting. But I mean, not to be cruel, but Robin, Nightwing, and Red Hood is just variations on a character of the same thing. It's like it's like that Futurama meme where they have like 2 identical clones running for president, like Jim Johnson and John Gibson. It's like they're all basically Robin.
Yeah,
they've all been Robin.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. Okay, let's do some tidbits. Some smaller, shorter gaming news stories that we may or may not have very much to say on. Probably don't have much to say on. Let's move on. I mean, we could do. It's a timing thing as well. Let's have a look. We got a lot of PlayStation here. PlayStation State of Play set for the 2nd of June, which is going to focus on third parties and PlayStation VR 2 games. Thursday. Wednesday. Might be Wednesday. No, it's Thursday. Moody asked me if we were going to react to it, and I said, absolutely not.
Oh, you're not going to do reactions?
I am not going to do reactions for two reasons. Number one, it's a third-party state of play. I can't guarantee I'm not going to see Hogwarts Legacy. And number two, it's D&D. I'm doing D&D that night, so it's mostly the D&D thing. Yeah, they're gonna the PSVR 2. The fact that there's gonna be PSVR 2 games at this state of play has piqued my interest a bit because obviously they've announced the headset, but they haven't really told us like when roughly to expect it. It ties in with the other thing that we've learned about PSVR 2 this past week, which is it's going to have over 20 games at launch, which will be a mixture of first and third party games. Probably about how many came out with the original headset, now that I think about it. I'm just wondering how heavy... I'm wondering if this is a PSVR 2 state of play. Like, exclusively, or almost exclusively.
So that it's PSVR and third party?
Yeah. PSVR and Final Fantasy.
I mean, you joke that'll probably be what it'll be. It'll be like Final Fantasy, Street Fighter, probably like very Japan centric.
Yeah, I don't know about Japan centric because we just had a Japan centric state of play not too long ago. The one with the game that wasn't Dino Crisis but was made by Capcom and had dinosaurs in it.
More for like the third parties, like if they're gonna like have a platform anywhere at, I can't believe it's not E3. I'd imagine it would be like what is basically Sony's press conference, but for third parties.
I think they'll do I think PlayStation will do just purely because this is third party and PSVR 2 and God of War exists. I feel like there's gonna be another state of play or a full showcase not long from now. Like I'm thinking like in a July sort of time period. So like I think that's where you could have bigger things like Final Fantasy 16, for example, at a bigger showcase event later in the summer, whereas like maybe this one's just going to be sort of a whet your appetite kind of deal, especially with PSVR 2 being a thing that's going to be present at this conference for the first time like ever at a state of play. They're going to talk about PSVR 2. So I think that's my takeaway from it. I don't think this is going to be like mind blowing.
No, I think anyone who's expecting like big megaton announcements is probably going to have to set expectations. I mean, I think that's probably going to be across the board for the announcement season, because of
everything. The world in general. Yeah, I think 2022 started with a lot of promise in terms of video game releases, and I just think it's not going to quite get there through no fault of anyone's. Like, I just think it's not going to quite hit.
We all know why this is happening.
Yeah. And that's fine, because there's still going to be great games coming out. Okay. We've also got a PS5... what am I talking about? A PS5 coming to PC. Returnal might be coming to PC.
It's confirmed Sony's buying
PC.
Sony's buying PC.
They're going to finally release PC too. No, the rumors going around that seem quite credible that Returnal's coming to PC, and that's cool. Like, I think more PlayStation exclusives should come to PC.
It would be in keeping with their modus operandi of releasing their exclusives on PC.
Yeah. Plus Returnal, cool game, really cool game. Bored as fuck though. I got so angry at that game. Sony has also announced live action adaptations of God of War, Horizon, and Gran Turismo. Horizon is a Netflix one, God of War is an Amazon one, and Gran Turismo, who knows?
I don't understand what a live action adaptation of Gran Turismo.
Fast and Furious. If they just do Fast and Furious but call it Gran Turismo, I mean,
no,
they're not going to do that.
Furious is about as far away. It's on the opposite end of the spectrum of driving realism.
It'll be about, I don't know, like it'll
I'm sorry,
just be about
what's
racing.
Your once you're piss fighting John Cena and sending Tyrese into space, like, I'm sorry, you're not going to have that in Gran Turismo.
Probably not. No, it'll probably be more grounded.
It'll probably be more like the F1 documentaries on Netflix.
But
Either that or it's like this weird drama between drivers.
yeah, I mean that is also the F1 documentaries on Netflix. But yeah, I think it's probably going to be something like that.
It'll be a drive your racy car show, and it'll be mostly a branding exercise.
Yeah. I agree. The Sims. I want. Before we move on, actually, I just want to. I wonder where they'll start God of War. The live action adaptation, because I'm remembering the first 3 games.
Well, I don't imagine it'll be as, shall we say, as intense as the first game was.
Faithful to the games.
Funny enough, I was thinking that they were just going to do like the 2018 one with like, when he's like dad of boy, but
I suppose it would still be like.
The problem is that only works if you know who and what Kratos is. Like, first
exactly.
of all, you're like, what the fuck is this Greek guy doing in Norse mythology?
It's like, why is he?
And also
because
the whole game is a deconstruction of Kratos. It only works if you know what Kratos is.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't work as a deconstruction if you don't know what's being deconstructed. And I mean, it is also I'd say it's at least partially a deconstruction of toxic masculinity, and it could work on that level.
I mean, 6 1 half does the other, in that Kratos
was. That could have been his name.
That is the point that the game is making, is that Kratos doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of person is not impossible in real life and cannot have like a proper functioning human relationship.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think how a live action series is going to work, like in that context, because if like the first season of God of War is a condensed version of the first 3 games, and because what most people who aren't like super mega hardcore gaming nerds will have heard about God of War all comes from the 2018 game. People might get a bit, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is.
I mean, I think the way to approach this, and we're getting into sort of speculation territory, is like, it will be like a 10-episode Amazon series. It will probably look quite cheap. I would probably be thinking more, I don't want to say Xena Warrior Princess, but
that'd be awesome.
Probably like aesthetically what it's going to be closer to. It's going to be straightforward. This guy killed my family. Now I'll take revenge. It's the exact same plot as Kill Bill, RoboCop, The Crow, The Revenant. It's I have been wronged, and now I shall take bloody vengeance, and it will take 8 episodes to do. And that's pretty straightforward because Kratos isn't a very well developed character in the first.
Yeah, I wonder if like maybe they'll pepper the first 3 games into flashbacks that happen throughout the story of the 2018 game.
I mean, the 2018 game has the advantage of having a larger cast.
It does.
At least a cast that you're not murdering.
I mean, sure.
Or bagging.
Yeah.
Or bagging and then murdering.
Oh, but yeah. Anyway, let's move on. The Sims 4's long-awaited customizable pronouns feature is finally here. Yay. Fallen Order sequel, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, has officially been announced for 2023, and the sequel is set to have a more menacing tone.
You hear the story that was originally supposed to have like a woman of color as the lead?
I don't know. Yes, we talked about this on the podcast. It wasn't supposed to have one originally, but a lot of people in Respawn Entertainment pushed for either a woman, a black person, or a black woman be the lead character of Fallen Order. And allegedly the reason that they got back for that not being the case was, well, we already have Rey. That was it. That was the whole reason. Yes. We already have Ray and Finn, so we have to have a, I guess, white
So we
man.
okay.
And again, like it bothers me that they pushed for it, and the reason that they were given for it not happening was so flimsy. But like, I don't hold it against like the actor who plays Cal Kestis or like the Cal Kestis character, because it was a game I really enjoyed, and a performance that was fine.
I haven't played Fallen Order, and I feel like if that was a black woman, I probably would have. Like, I honestly am put off by the fact that it's just this boring white dude being in the lead.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe that's not fair, and it's a me problem, but
it's a fine story. I enjoyed the cast and the story that was told greatly. But yes, if this is what people were pushing at the studio, and the reason that they got was, well, we've reached our quota in Star Wars right now, like, that's nonsense. And again, that is a legend. I'm just going to throw that out there again.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's also the most, like, well, no shit, of course. They got a sequel to something that was perfectly commercially successful.
Yeah.
It's attached to the world.
But I enjoyed the first one, long forward to the second one. It having a darker tone doesn't surprise me, because like when you start a Star Wars series, it seems like in terms of like movies and I guess games now, it seems like you always have to go darker for the second installment. That's just like that's the blueprint.
That's like PR 101. It's like, we're doing The Empire Strikes Back of Pikmin or whatever. It's like, it's going to be darker and more intense.
I'd love to see the Empire, literally the Empire Strikes Back, but Pikmin.
I remember them saying that about Mass Effect 2, which in fairness, it was true.
It was, yeah, that happened. All right, cool. I'm going to do the next three all at once. Replaced has been delayed to 2023. Belarus-based dev cites war in Ukraine. Stray is releasing on July 19th, according to the PlayStation database. And the Dream Daddy developers are making a psychological horror game called Homebody. Just throwing out some facts at you. There we go. Game about a cat is releasing in July 19th. It's going to heal the world. Shall we do games out this week?
Me Pokemon Go all over again.
Maybe not that big a deal. Okay, let's have a games out this week. On May 31st, Dwarve is coming to PC. An epic action adventure with tower defense combat. Dungeon crawl through a ruined kingdom, fending off hordes with turrets and traps. Punch them into pits, pull them into spin blades, zap and burn them. Then on June 1st, Silt is coming to PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC. Dive into Silt's harrowing ocean abyss and unravel long-forgotten mysteries. Explore the dangerous waters, possess sea creatures, and solve puzzles to travel deeper into the darkness. Then on June 2nd, Card Shark comes to Switch and PC. Card Shark is an adventure game full of cunning, intrigue, and delectable deceit. Enter a world where you'll need to play your opponents better than you play your cards. And lastly, also on June 2nd, The Last Clockwinder comes to Quest 2 and Steam VR. A VR puzzle automation game. Create intricate clockwork contraptions out of your own clones and restore life to an ancient tree. And that's all the games coming out this week. And now we're going to close the podcast out as the way we always do, with OpenCritic head-to-head. This is the game we play on the podcast every single... Sorry, I got distracted making sure the OpenCritic head-to-head score was right. This is the game we play every single week where we try to guess the OpenCritic average of one upcoming game. Whoever guesses closest to the score at the time of recording gets 1 point. If you manage to guess the score correctly, you get 2 points. Last week, myself, Moody, and Averill tried to guess the OpenCritic average of Sniper Elite 5. I guessed it would get an 80, Moody guessed it would get an 85, and Averill guessed it would get a 76. At the time of recording, Sniper Elite 5 has an OpenCritic average of 80, which gives Amy 2 points for guessing the score correctly and puts the score at Amy 10, Moody 8. Our guests still haven't scored any points yet, so no pressure, Patrick. This week, we're trying to guess the OpenCritic average of Card Shark, the game I just mentioned above, where you play cards. It's like, I played a demo of it at the Steam Next Fest, the last Steam Next Fest on Twitch. It's a strange game, You play a bunch of different types of card games, but you're also like you taken under the wing of a con man. So you're basically cheating at all of these card games. It's interesting. It was definitely interesting. Moody's already guessed it would get a 65. He put his score in on the document at some point in the last 2 hours. But Parek, what do you think? What do you think? I believe it's a Devolver Digital joint.
This is a Devolver Games now. I feel like it's going to review well. But I also feel like OpenCritic sort of like tends to bring those things lower than I thought. So I'm actually tempted to put something like in the mid-70s.
OpenCritic is an interesting beast.
I think I'm probably aiming a bit high. So I'll say 75, just to distinguish yourself from Moody.
75. Well, last week my tactic worked of splitting the difference between Averill and Moody. But this week I'm actually going to go higher than both of you. I don't know why. I refuse to explain.
I have a feeling it's going to do well.
I'm going to guess that it is going to have an OpenCritic average of 82.
I don't know if it's going to do well enough to sort of crack the 80s.
Maybe not. I don't know. So one of my favorite games of 2022 so far, Elden Ring aside, obviously, is it was called Citizen Sleeper, and I was like, no, sorry. I mean, one of my favorite games of 2022 is Citizen Sleeper, but that's not the game I wanted to talk about. One of my favorite games of let me try that again. Rewind. One of my favorite games of 2022 is Norco, which is a point-and-click a narrative-driven adventure game, and I first learned about it last year at the Tribeca Games Spotlight, where it was like the Tribeca Games Festival best game, and I was super excited about this game. And I thought about because we also play a thing called Fantasy Critic over here, and I was like, oh, I think it's going to get a really, really high score. But then I doubted OpenCritic and critics in general. Just because I'm mega hyped for it doesn't mean everybody's going to be mega hyped for it. And then it's only the second best reviewed game of the year on OpenCritic. Sometimes that just happens. And what I've found from playing this silly little game that I've never really taken too seriously is review scores don't matter. And will often be bewildering and perplexing. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way.
Here's my hot take. I don't think Elden Ring should be on 95 on OpenCritic. I think that is a bit high.
Well, if we didn't alienate anyone with the first 10 minutes of the podcast, we sure alienated everybody with the last. I'm kidding. All opinions are welcome here. Within reason.
In fairness, I haven't played it.
Okay, that's fair.
But I do think that it was when it was handed out for reviews, it was given to people who were already sort of.
I tend to find that happens with all of them, and I've talked about this before. Even as a person who is a From Software fan, Bloodborne is one of my favorite games of all time. Even I look at reviews sometimes and go, yeah, but you've given this to the people who are going to love it. It would be like giving me a review copy of Elden Ring, right? And it's like, well, she gave it a 10 out of 10. Of course she did. But on that point, so Elfie, who's Averill, who was on last week's podcast, and she's been on a few podcasts. Elden Ring was her first From Software game. When she started playing it, I have this tendency to sweep people up with how hyped I get for certain things. And she was one of 5 people that I inadvertently, accidentally got to buy Elden Ring when it came out. And she loved it. So there might be something to it with Elden Ring as far as, hey, maybe if you didn't like From Software because of X, Y, and Z reason, other From Software games, maybe you like Elden Ring, because I don't think she really likes super mega challenging games. That's why I was worried when she said she'd bought it, because I had made her excited for it, because I was like, oh no, she's going to blame me when she doesn't like it. This is Keith and Neo 2 all over again. No, what do I do? But so I don't know. Like, I can't answer that question because I'm not a From Software noob. But I don't know. I don't know.
I don't want to get into the whole elder discourse because it's not really fair because I haven't played it.
That's fair. I mean,
but I look at 95%. It's like, God, and it's like, God, this was reviewed by people who.
That's true.
Had probably made a decision about Elden Ring before they played it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, like, I try not to do that myself.
I don't think this. I mean, this is a game that sold like north of 10 million copies. I don't think we're talking about people who can't stop it. Yeah. Which is going to be a non-zero number, and how many people is? I mean, like I said, it's probably not fair for me to be talking that I don't want to be causing trouble by. I'm aware that I'm probably an outlier on this.
Yeah, but it's valid. I didn't like Dark Souls 1. And when I played Bloodborne and got into it, and it was one of my favorite games of all time, I went back to play Dark Souls 1 thinking, I get it now. I'm going to really like this game. And you know what? Still don't like it. So it's totally valid. Like, all of the thing about opinions about video games, within reason, is they're all valid and they're all welcome here. Except some of Moody's opinions we don't tolerate. Some of Moody's opinions about, say, I don't know, Titanfall. That's Titanfall hate isn't tolerated. Moody's Titanfall hate isn't tolerated here, and that's going to do it for episode 306.
What about my Titanfall indifference?
I'll take indifference. Indifference is fine. It means I can still win you over. I'm just kidding. That's going to do it for episode 306 of the Words About Games podcast. Parek, less than 24 hours ago was when I sent you the message asking you if you could do this, so thank you very, very much for stepping in and being here with me. I think we had a very cool and fun conversation about some very dark topics.
I wasn't busy. I feel like I didn't really have like much useful to talk about because I'm not in the industry and not very well informed about the business side of it.
You did very. I feel like it feels like what I was about to say was patronizing, but I don't mean it as patronizing when I say that. You did very well. There's a reason we keep having you back. That's all I'm gonna say. You're a cool guy with cool thoughts, and you articulate yourself very well, and you're wearing a cool shirt, and you've got a cool Pokemon behind you. So.
Got several Pokemon. One doesn't stand up. I've got a little Cubone here.
There you go. You got cool Pokemon all around you, so that'll do it. I've only got like couple of Pokemon. I think I might only have one actually. It's there.
I've got a Sylveon.
There's an Eevee down there somewhere, but I haven't turned the lights on very recently.
I'll bring up Sylveon, Espeon, and Umbreon so they can hang out.
Hell yeah! Well, I'm gonna move my microphone closer to the webcam for the end of this so they can all hang out, and I'm just gonna say bye, Parek. And Umbreon and Sylveon. And Espeon.